So, what exactly makes a weapon truly deadly in the 21st century? Historically, we've always measured lethality in terms of range, accuracy, speed, and just raw destruction, right? But today, those traditional metrics, they really don't stand alone anymore. The very nature of what we consider deadly has fundamentally shifted.
Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking Daniel W. Marshall's fascinating book, Dominance by Design, and you can see the cover right here. The core thesis we're exploring today is, honestly, completely mind-bending. Marshall argues that the deadliest weapons in the modern world are actually often the ones that never even fire. They're engineered not just to destroy things physically, but to manipulate perception, plant paralyzing fear, and completely alter how an adversary makes decisions. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. Number 1, the new meaning of deadly. Number 2, deterrents from the shadows. 3, the spectacle of speed. 4, swarms and laser shields. And finally, number 5, the future of firepower.
Starting off with Section 1, the new meaning of deadly, redefining modern warfare. We really have to recognize that lethality has moved away from pure battlefield effectiveness and shifted directly toward geopolitical leverage.
Consider this concept of anticipatory violence. This is basically the capacity of a weapon to absolutely haunt an adversary's decision-making process. Modern deadliness isn't just about metal or fuel anymore. It's about planting this paralyzing fear right into an opponent's imagination. You force them to spend billions of dollars and stay constantly vigilant for a threat that honestly might never even materialize.
Historically, the old metric of war was horrifyingly simple, right? Body counts and territorial conquest. But today, the new metric is psychological paralysis and economic pressure. Paralyzing a nation's infrastructure from afar, or just eroding the credibility of its defense systems, is now deemed far deadlier than immediate battlefield casualties.
Let's look at Section 2, deterrents from the shadows, where invisibility becomes power. We're exploring elite weapon systems that derive their immense power precisely because they cannot be easily seen or tracked.
30,000 pounds. Think about that for a second. That is the staggering weight of the GBU-57 MOP, the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. It's literally the ultimate bunker buster. But what makes it so terrifying isn't just the sheer weight, it's how it has to be delivered. It must be flown in completely silently by the B-2 stealth bomber. It's this incredible intersection where brute force meets high-concept invisibility, designed specifically to destroy deeply buried mountain targets, like hardened command centers, without any warning whatsoever.
And look, it's not just stealth bombers. We are seeing an entire arsenal of the unseen. You've got the Trident II D5, giving a submarine-launched, completely invisible global strike capability. Then there's Russia's Poseidon, which is a nuclear-armed tsunami drone engineered for immense underwater stealth, and China's DF-41 missile, which thrives on road and rail mobility, actively using massive geography just to stay concealed.
So, this leaves leaders facing a pretty terrifying question. What happens when you just can't find the weapon? I want you to imagine the psychological toll of constantly assuming that an invisible threat is already armed, ready, and lurking right off your coast. It induces this permanent, exhausting state of reactive planning and absolute caution.
Moving to Section 3, the spectacle of speed, hypersonics, and theater. We're shifting focus here from invisible threats to the undeniable ones, weapons built for raw, unavoidable speed and deliberate public spectacle.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is Russia's RS-28 Sarmat, intercontinental ballistic missile, famously known as Satan II. What's fascinating here is that this is basically a performative weapon. Yes, obviously it has massive destructive capacity, but its primary function is apocalyptic theater. By unveiling it on state television with dramatic animations, it's designed to project psychological defiance and remind adversaries that their current defenses are essentially an illusion.
And then, of course, we have hypersonics, like the Avangard glide vehicle, which completely rewrites the traditional kill chain. Unlike regular missiles that follow predictable arcs, a hypersonic vehicle is detected at launch, sure, but then it enters this erratic, unpredictable atmospheric glide phase and finally strikes with practically zero response time for any interceptor. It is incredibly fast.
Which brings us to Section 4, swarms and laser shields, the new economics of war. Here, we encounter the modern battlefield's entirely new economic reality.
We are witnessing a massive clash of two completely different doctrines. On one side, you have the Shahed 136 drone. It's cheap, it's mass-produced, and it relies on the brutal logic of swarm attrition warfare. But its vulnerability is that it's low-tech and very loud. On the exact opposite side, you have Israel's Iron Beam laser. This requires incredibly expensive R&D, but it costs mere pennies per shot, offering an instantaneous, infinite magazine. Its vulnerability, though, it's heavily dependent on clear weather and can still technically be overwhelmed by sheer saturation.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying math of modern conflict. As the quote says, the Shahed 136 forces adversaries to burn through their arsenals, overstretch their defenses, and second-guess the air at night. A crude $1,000 drone literally forces defenders to spend millions of dollars shooting it down. The adversary is essentially outsourcing their attrition strategy to your own defense budget, exhausting you both financially and psychologically.
To counter this, we're seeing the directed energy shift. First, we're moving away from physical, kinetic interceptors to sheer wattage. Second, defense becomes this continuous, silent disruption instead of a massive, loud explosion. And finally, the new challenge becomes managing thermal thresholds against these massive saturation attacks. The sky literally transforms into an electrified boundary.
Let's move to Section 5, the future of firepower, monopolies, and fragility, and see how all of this builds into the broader geopolitical implications.
So, a handful of nations maintain technological monopolies on these advanced systems. But there is a very real burden to being unmatchable. While it absolutely lets you define the conflict environment before a war even begins, it simultaneously breeds global backlash and defiance. It actually creates vulnerability by forcing smaller actors to take bigger risks with cheap asymmetrical tech. Ultimately, that kind of dominance is highly fragile and demands intense restraint and moral sovereignty.
All of this leaves us with a profound, lingering question. Will the most powerful weapon of the future be the one no one can match, or the one no one dares to misuse? In this era of precision threats, dominance is clearly not just about the hardware you build. It's about the fear you generate, and the dangerous decisions you can suppress without ever firing a single shot. If you want to really understand where geopolitics and military strategy are heading, you absolutely need to read this book. To dive deeper into the elite arsenal redefining modern war, grab your copy of Dominance by Design right now at the link on your screen. https://mybook2NC01066. Seriously, it is an essential read to grasp the true mechanisms of global power and the psychology of tomorrow's battlefield. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.